Look around your sales floor or, look at your pipeline data. With automation and generative AI doing more heavy lifting than ever, are you wondering if your salespeople are about to become obsolete?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's the single most dangerous assumption circulating in modern boardrooms right now.
Right, because you're sitting in a revenue strategy meeting looking at the massive overhead of your sales organization, the base salaries, the commissions, travel expenses.
Yeah, and then you look at the dashboard for your new AI platform.
Exactly. You watch this system ingest raw market data and generate a hyper-personalized 50-page enterprise proposal in, 12 seconds?
It's staggering, and it perfectly models pipeline forecasts with basically zero human error. So the temptation to view that capability as a wholesale replacement for human capital is incredibly strong.
Especially when you, as a sales leader or hiring manager, are under massive pressure to optimize margins. You look at the tech, you look at the payroll, and you ask if the whole model of enterprise revenue is about to be automated.
But operating under that assumption, well, it demonstrates a really fundamental misunderstanding of what a business is actually paying its top-tier sales professionals to accomplish.
Which is exactly why we are pulling apart this narrative today on our deep dive. We want to cut straight through that Silicon Valley tech hype and give you, the listener, a grounded roadmap.
Yeah, we're pulling our insights today from a genuinely compelling piece published by the Sales Experts.
Right, an article written by Wynne Nathan Davis titled 5 Reasons Why AI Will Never Replace Salespeople. Our mission today is to unpack the mechanics of why complex B2B sales remains a uniquely human endeavor.
And more importantly, map out how you can properly leverage AI to drive true sales success, rather than just using it as a blunt instrument for cost-cutting.
Which I love, because Davis isn't playing the role of a technology skeptic here. He fully acknowledges this massive, irreversible shift AI is causing.
Exactly, but he draws a very sharp boundary between executing a technical process and actually navigating a human decision-making environment.
Let's examine that boundary. Because before you even consider replacing a quota-carrying team with an algorithm, we have to look at the reality of B2B buying environments.
Right. If you're selling enterprise software or massive supply chain contracts, those environments are, well, they're never straightforward.
No, it's not a frictionless one-click e-commerce transaction.
Not at all. Consider the anatomy of a complex buying decision, which Davis highlights as the primary area demanding human judgment. Think about a typical enterprise procurement cycle.
You're rarely dealing with just a single rational actor.
Right. You're dealing with a buying committee. You have a VP of operations who wants maximum efficiency. You have a CFO who is, honestly, actively looking for an excuse to kill the deal to save money.
Oh, totally. And an IT director who is just terrified about integration security and the sheer amount of work this new platform is going to force onto their team.
And then you add in the internal corporate politics, those historical rivalries between departments that are completely invisible to an outside observer, plus an incredibly high threshold for risk.
So an AI might be able to read the technical requirements of all those different stakeholders and generate a feature list, but it's fundamentally blind to that underlying friction.
Completely blind.
It sounds like AI is the ultimate hyper-efficient data analyst sitting in the back room, but it just can't read the room during a tense boardroom negotiation.
That is such a critical distinction. AI is phenomenal at supporting the quantitative analysis of a deal. Need to surface historical buying patterns from your CRM. AI is unmatched.
Right.
But put that same AI in a meeting where the CFO's body language suddenly tightens, or where there's this unspoken, palpable hostility between the marketing lead and the technology director.
Yeah, AI cannot process that emotional undercurrent in real time. It can't pull the IT director aside for a coffee to understand their hidden anxieties.
Exactly. And it certainly cannot navigate that political ambiguity to save a multi-million-dollar agreement. It just lacks the capacity for organizational sociology.
But let me push back on that a bit. The technology is advancing so rapidly. What about the argument that AI can simulate empathy? Because we've all seen tools that analyze a prospect's social media, tailor the tone of an email, even use sentiment analysis on a Zoom call. If AI can convincingly simulate a natural conversation, why can't it build trust?
Because in high-value, complex B2B environments, simulating empathy is not the same thing as assuming risk.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Davis makes it incredibly clear that buyers aren't just evaluating a software platform, they're evaluating the people standing behind it. Trust isn't just about sounding polite.
Right, or remembering the names of a prospect's kids.
Exactly. Trust is built on credibility, accountability, and skin in the game. When a chief information officer signs a $10 million contract, they are putting their professional reputation on the line.
Potentially their entire career. They're absorbing a massive amount of personal risk.
Right. And a buyer needs to look across the table and see someone who shares the weight of that risk.
Which is exactly the opposite of an algorithm. I mean, an AI has no career to lose.
It has no reputation to protect, no legal or financial liability. A buyer needs to know that the human being looking back at them understands the gravity of the decision.
They need to know commitments are backed by personal integrity. You really cannot automate the concept of giving someone your word.
You can't. That deep commercial relationship is forged through shared human experience and mutual accountability over time.
Okay, so if the human element absorbs that risk and builds trust to get you into the room, what happens when the landscape of the deal shifts under your feet?
Which it always does.
Always. Anyone in sales knows no pitch deck survives contact with the actual buyer perfectly intact. Which brings us to this tension between static data and dynamic sales environments.
This is a major structural limitation of AI that Davis explores. AI operates within a defined sandbox. It depends entirely on its programming parameters and historical training data.
So it performs best when patterns are consistent and variables are tightly controlled.
Right, when the rules of the game don't change. But real B2B sales is the absolute antithesis of a controlled environment.
It's practically anarchic. Stakeholders change their minds overnight. A budget gets slashed in Q3 because of some macroeconomic shift.
Or a competitor unexpectedly launches a disruptive feature on a Tuesday morning right before your final presentation. The parameters are always moving.
And because they're moving, the environment demands real-time adaptability. Every single sales conversation is a unique collision of variables.
Exactly. The objections a buyer raises will vary wildly based on their mood or recent internal meetings. Human salespeople are trained to adjust their approach instantaneously.
Right. If an elite rep senses they're losing the room, they don't just keep reading the slides. They stop. They change their tone.
They abandon the script entirely. They reposition the value proposition on the spot, responding with raw intuition and creative problem solving.
Whereas an AI, operating in its parameters, would just stubbornly continue its pre-programmed sequence, completely oblivious to the fact that the entire context just changed.
It's like relying on an autopilot system during a massive, unforeseen storm. The autopilot knows the physics of flight, but a human pilot knows how to creatively salvage the aircraft when an engine fails.
Wow, yeah. The human ability to pivot creatively in the face of ambiguity is something algorithms just can't replicate.
I really can't.
I want to play devil's advocate again, though, because a primary selling point of AI right now is presenting complex information clearly and personalizing messaging at scale.
Sure.
We've all gotten those hyper-personalized outreach emails referencing our specific industry bottlenecks. From a buyer's perspective, isn't customized data delivery the same as communicating value?
That is perhaps the most common trap revenue leaders fall into right now, and Davis directly dismantles it. There's a vast distinction between presenting information and communicating value.
Really? How so?
Well, AI is undeniably brilliant at presenting information. It can synthesize a 100-page manual into a flawless 2-page summary or customize the first name in 1,000 outbound emails. But that's ultimately just data delivery. It's a one-way transmission of facts.
It's essentially just reading the corporate brochures to the prospect in a highly customized, grammatically perfect way.
Exactly. The mechanism of communicating value is entirely different. It requires a consultative translation process. Effective humans don't just list features.
They translate those features into highly specific business outcomes, right?
Yeah.
Tailored to the psychological needs of the buyer.
Yes. A human rep listens to a prospect mention a minor logistical bottleneck in passing, and then creatively connects their solution to that bottleneck to build a multi-million-dollar business case.
They quantify the impact dynamically, showing the CFO how it protects the bottom line, while showing the end user how it removes frustration from their daily routine.
And the really fascinating part of that consultative process, the part that genuinely drives revenue, is the ability to create friction.
Okay, constructive friction. An elite salesperson knows exactly when and how to challenge a buyer.
Right. Consider the psychology there. What happens when a Fortune 500 buyer asks for a specific technical solution, but their entire architectural strategy is fundamentally flawed?
If you feed that into an AI, it just generates what they ask for.
Because AI is subservient by design. It's engineered to please the prompt giver. It will happily help the buyer execute a terrible strategy.
But a top-tier human expert will politely stop the buyer, create that positive tension, and say, I understand why you're asking for that, but it's going to fail in 6 months, and here's why.
Exactly. They reframe the conversation. They push back on flawed assumptions. That constructive friction elevates a salesperson from a vendor to a trusted advisor.
Which leads to a massive breakthrough in a complex sale. AI is completely unequipped to challenge authority in a way that builds respect.
Totally unequipped.
So let's map this out. The human has navigated the politics, absorbed the risk to build trust, adapted the pitch, and challenged the buyer's flawed strategy. They secure the signature.
The revenue is booked.
But then we hit the reality of the business lifecycle. The ink dries, implementation begins, and things inevitably break.
Which brings us to what Davis identifies as the ultimate deal breaker in the AI replacement theory. Accountability.
Accountability.
In complex enterprise sales, accountability is a burden that cannot be outsourced to a server farm. Timelines are going to shift, software crashes, shipments get delayed.
And when a project stalls, buyers do not want to submit a support ticket to a large language model.
No, they demand a clear human point of contact who takes absolute, unwavering ownership of the failure.
It's the most obvious yet overlooked flaw in the automated sales vision. You cannot hold an algorithm responsible. You can't fire an AI.
And you certainly can't expect a piece of code to feel the agonizing weight of a blown launch date. That lack of accountability is terrifying to an enterprise buyer.
A human salesperson acts as the internal champion for the client. When things go wrong, the rep goes to bat for the buyer within their own organization.
Right, they escalate the issue, demand resources, ensure it gets fixed. But Davis points out this goes beyond just soothing an anxious client. Human accountability creates a vital feedback loop.
A feedback loop. Let's break down how that impacts the broader organization.
Well, think of a sales organization without human accountability, like a biological body without a central nervous system.
Okay.
When you touch a hot stove, the pain signals your brain to pull away. In a business, when a product launch falls flat, the screaming customer on the phone with the account executive is that pain signal.
Right. The human salesperson absorbs that frustration, internalizes it, and then aggressively forces organizational change. They march into the product team's office and explain why the UI is failing.
Exactly. So the human salesperson is the sensory nervous system for the company. If you automate the client relationship, you sever that sensory input.
An AI might just tag an interaction as negative sentiment, but a database entry doesn't have the emotional urgency to force an engineering team to work the weekend to fix a critical bug.
You lose the nuanced understanding of why you are winning or losing in the market.
So if AI fundamentally lacks this sociological judgment, the capacity to build trust, adaptability, consultative courage, and accountability, where does it actually fit?
Right. If it's not replacing the human element, what's the actionable strategy for an executive listening right now?
Yeah. How do we weaponize this for growth?
This is where we transition to the real role of AI. As defined by Davis and the sales experts, AI is not a wholesale replacement. It is the ultimate sales enabler.
A surgical instrument to strip away the operational friction preventing your salespeople from actually selling. Let's get very specific with some takeaways for hiring managers and revenue leaders.
Our first major actionable insight: aggressively use AI to automate the administrative burden and surface data-driven insights.
Because if you look at a typical B2B sales professional's calendar, the ratio of time spent communicating with clients versus wrestling with internal systems is disastrous.
It really is. Reps spend countless hours updating CRM fields, drafting routine follow-ups, formatting forecast spreadsheets. AI should be deployed immediately to annihilate that administrative drudgery.
Let the AI transcribe and log the call notes automatically.
Let it draft the initial summary of the discovery meeting. Let it monitor the CRM and proactively flag a high-value account that hasn't been engaged in 90 days.
Which flows perfectly into the next strategic takeaway. Leverage AI to radically improve the qualification process for a sales lead, meaning use the technology to analyze the health of your pipeline.
This is where you see a massive ROI. You want your highly paid human talent focusing their cognitive energy on the highest probability opportunities.
AI is incredibly adept at analyzing a massive, noisy funnel of raw inbound prospects. It can score a lead based on thousands of historical data points in a fraction of a second.
It instantly identifies which prospects match your ideal customer profile analyzes pipeline health, and forecasts trends with the mathematical precision humans just can't achieve.
So the technology handles the quantitative sorting. It builds the topographical map of the market. But you still need the human professional to actually traverse the terrain and negotiate the obstacles.
Exactly. The AI ensures the sales professional is pointing their energy in the optimal direction. It offloads the math, so the human focuses on the art of the deal.
Which brings us to the ultimate strategic takeaway. By offloading this busy work, you give your organization a massive competitive advantage. You redirect human capital toward higher value activities.
If your competitors are using AI to minimize headcount, they are inevitably going to lose the battle for trust in the market.
But if you use AI to free up capacity, your reps can double down on what matters. Deep relationship building, mapping out account strategies, executing those consultative translations.
You're empowering them to lean into their uniquely human attributes: empathy, intuition, personal accountability, amplifying their human skills by removing robotic tasks.
Automation will undeniably reshape sales. Processes will become more efficient, market data more predictive, but the foundational core of the revenue profession remains absolutely unchanged.
At its core, B2B sales is about deeply understanding people, solving complex human problems, and building verifiable trust. Technology supports those outcomes, but it cannot replace the human driving them.
And that is precisely why securing and retaining the right human talent is more critical today than ever. Human talent is quickly becoming the ultimate uncopyable differentiator.
Absolutely.
Which is why, if you want to secure the top 1% of sales talent and build predictable growth, you have to be intentional. We highly encourage you to visit thesalesexperts.com to dive deeper.
They offer comprehensive self-study sales training programs designed specifically to elevate the human element of your revenue team. It's a goldmine for leaders focused on long-term growth.
It's all about equipping your people with the tools to thrive in this technologically augmented landscape, rather than preparing to phase them out.
Right.
So let's bring this all back to where we started. Think about that image of your next quarterly strategy meeting. Look around your sales floor. Look at the people holding your pipeline together through sheer intuition and grit.
As you navigate this technological shift, we want to leave you with a final, highly provocative thought straight from Nathan Davis's article, something to deeply consider.
What's the question?
Davis asks, as AI becomes more integrated into your pipeline, ask yourself this: are you using it to replace people or to make your salespeople more effective?
Because if you just view AI as a cheap, hyper-fast data analyst in the back room, you'll realize very quickly that a data analyst can never read the tension in a boardroom, absorb the risk of a client, shake a hand, and close the deal.
The future belongs to organizations that use technology to unleash their human talent, not automate it away.
Keep investing in the human element. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.